You got it, Daniel. What are we here doing?
Well, it's Saturday night, so I think it's probably time that we overreact to a little piece of football that we just watched. Georgia, Texas next.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for making us your first listen. The Everydayers over here. He is Daniel. I'm Clint. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel.com. More on them in a moment. Daniel teased it at the open, but we just got done watching. If I can set this up, let me set the mood, if you will. Light a couple candles.
Okay, yeah, sure.
What we just saw.
Wax on however long you want, Clint. I'll be over here.
So little old upstart Georgia. Little old, nobody believes in, nobody can go. The best atmosphere in college football in the best town in America.
National
Austin.
championship pregame.
Let's get hats on. Let's get boots on. Let's get guest pickers.
Yes,
let's drive a Cadillac with dead animals on it. This all sounds great to me.
Sir.
Let's pick little old plucky Georgia to go ahead and take the L, because the most dominant, the most sure bet, the clearest elite team that we've ever seen in college football, especially having no speed bumps on the horizon whatsoever, about to plow through this. It's not so tough being the SEC, they said. It's not so hard. We've been here, and look what we're doing. But we said you ain't played nobody yet. And when the
now you have played somebody now.
We're in the same place as you for the entirety of the game, and you can't go nowhere. The gates are locked, and Georgia just absolutely handed Steve Sarkisian in a beautiful masterpiece of a pummeling job, fighting everything in their path to overcome and destroy dominant fashion. Y'all screwed up and y'all woke up Kirby's defense, and that's on you, college football, because once it goes, you don't really stop it.
Yeah. So the thing about Georgia is they're better than Texas.
That's it.
By a pretty good margin, if I'm being totally honest. What you had tonight, Clint, was 5-point underdog Georgia. And they went ahead and went into there. And the biggest game in the history of DKR, by the way, is what I was told.
My goodness. Talk about not having anything to play for in the Big 12. Like, please stop it, Texas. You're embarrassing yourself.
Oh, say poverty without saying poverty real quick. Okay, the biggest game in the history of DKR, and Georgia waltzes in there. Pretty little number one Texas. They cover the 5. They win the game. They double their score. They hold the number one offense in the country to 15 points. After giving up 3 turnovers and giving them short fields multiple times, 15 points. They hold Texas to 30-15 is the final score. Let me start here, Clint. And I need to say this because it's the overreaction show. And so you know what that means. If you're here, you're an everydayer. Thank you to the everydayers, by the way, who are here. If you're here with us, you know that the overreaction show, we don't pull the punches. No. We don't mince any words. We're gonna come straight at you. Okay. But you need to understand that might also include you. Okay. So let me say this right off the jump.
Go ahead.
If you're here to listen to us talk negatively about this Georgia team, you may have picked the wrong post-game show to listen to, because we have negative thoughts about the team.
This team is not perfect. We know that.
We have negative thoughts about the play caller. We have negative thoughts about the quarterback. We have negative thoughts about the way the offense was run. All of those things. You know what? You may just want, if you showed up here to hear us talk about those things, you may want to reevaluate if you're a fun person to hang around with.
After beating the number 1 team in their place, I would like to give you the expertise that I have in the coaching circles to let you know how Gunnar Stockton should start.
We're fans, and as a fan, we like winning on the road at number 1 Texas. Like, that's a fun thing for us to do. So
it's a blast.
Good news for you. We'll be back on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and every day this week, heading into a bye week. By the way, we're going to have a lot of time to talk about Carson Beck. We're going to have a lot of time to talk about Mike Bobo, and you may be shocked to learn how we feel about those things.
I have thoughts.
Today, Clint. Today, it's pretzel day. You understand? It's today.
And I want everything on that.
I wake up 365 days a year in a bed that's too small. But today we beat number 1 Texas on the road in Austin. And so that's what we're going to talk about. All right. Kirby Smart gets his 100th win in his first, wait for this, 117 games as a head coach.
So I'm not very good at math, Daniel. So just help me if you can. That means that there's 17 games. But there's 17 others. So he's only lost 17 of the 117.
Games. Yeah. Leaving him with 100 wins. The most dominant start to a career in the history of the SEC, which is interesting given some of the names of some of the coaches that have previously coached in the SEC, but now are deceased. May God rest their souls. Kirby Smart, the best of all of them. Okay, I'm not talking about Kalen DeBoer, by the way,
who has to sit on set next to a drunken punter and drink.
That is, by the way, that's the equivalent of being deceased. If you have to sit next to Pat McAfee for your job, you are deceased. I'm not trying to insult the man.
They force him to.
He's literally deceased. That's the nature of his job.
Yes.
Kirby Smart with his 100th win. Steve Sarkisian absolutely dribbles down his leg on national TV in front of God and everybody.
Well, it's hard when you're being absolutely gutted by Kirby Smart.
Manhandled up front, Clint. That's where we need to start this conversation. I was told the Texas offensive line is dominant. Clint, I was told they're the best in college football. I was told the left tackle is a surefire first tackle off the board.
Yeah.
Like, these are the best players in college football. The problem is that up until tonight, they ain't played nobody. And nobody includes Jalen Walker and Michael Williams.
Oh, no. You see what had happened, Texas fans that came for us last week talking how clueless we are. Daniel, did you know how clueless we are?
Because I don't read the comments, but I'm keen to hear it now. Please tell me now.
You and I are clueless because Texas had shown on
quarterback.
field.
We never played quarterback in D1.
We never played quarterback, so
sorry,
D1.
That's a side conversation. Sorry, Zach. We're getting back on it. Getting back on it. No, it's not great.
The defensive line. See, what happens when you have to play in the SEC every week, and you don't get to put people like UTSA in North Texas.
Well,
you don't get to go cherry pick the lesser people in your neighborhood because you don't want to leave your state because you think that you're God's blessing to all of us.
You don't play that Big 12, that Big 12 schedule.
Even though you're the most annoying state to ever have existed, and I wish you would succeed. That would make me so happy if you.
I wish the real UT had let you get sectioned off to Mexico. To be honest with you,
truly and honestly, okay, because y'all got backhanded to the ground multiple times up front in the trenches by the best defensive line you faced, best defensive line anybody's going to face, and the offensive line had no answers, had no strength, had no speed, had no agility and technique to stop any of the beasts that we call them dogs.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, we're going to talk about that moving into segment 2. We're going to name names. We're going to talk stats. We are going to we're going to expose some things next on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
But first, I want to let you know about Hims. Hims is fantastic, and you need to go over there right now. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and you always want to be ready. So we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provide access to treatments that can help you stay hard, last longer, giving you the boost in confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes you. Right now, over at Hims. Help us out by going there, because you don't want to have that situation happen to you. It's not happening to anybody that we know. Kirby Smart is always confident, always ready to go. George is always ready to go. It's changing men's healthcare, providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments for the comfort of your couch. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and medical provider will determine the right treatment options. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed. One price covers everything, your treatments for ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compound products, which are not approved or verified for the safety effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Let's name some names, shall we, Daniel?
I think two guys really stood out on this defense, but I think we should start with the guy that was clearly, to me, the defensive MVP of this game, and it was Jalen Walker.
My gosh.
Lot of money added to Jalen Walker's future bank account tonight.
Kirby tells people, skip the NIL because I'm going to develop you, and then you're going to go high in the draft, and they have to, wait for it, guarantee you money, not
guaranteed
a random collection of goods that may equate to a certain amount. Cold hard cash guaranteed in your bank account.
Yeah, Jalen Walker made himself a lot of that tonight because he's going to be skyrocketing up draft boards because he proved that he is an elite pass rusher. He was the most singularly dominant defensive player I have seen in a Georgia uniform in a long time. He was the best pass rusher in that first half, particularly, that I've seen at Georgia since Jarvis Jones played at Georgia.
There it is.
He was unblockable in many situations and was in Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Do you remember when they put in Arch Manning?
Remember when Ewers was so scared, he didn't know where to turn left or right or go upfield. He didn't know if Jalen was. It was like Predator in the jungle, and he wasn't Arnold. He was every other character besides Arnold, and the Predator was somewhere out there, and he didn't know where he was going to come from next. And so they said, let's throw a small child into the mix, see if he can fare
Arch
better.
Manning in the game, and the crowd went wild.
Like, yes. Oh no! But then when
they thought they won the Super Bowl, they thought they were Alabama beating Georgia in a regular season game, Clint. It was unbelievable. Jalen Walker was unbelievable tonight, and Michael Williams was absolutely dominant as well. I think you're seeing Michael get healthier, Clint. And as he gets healthier, it cannot be understated what an impact his lack of health has been to this team. He adds an element, especially, it seems, in big games. And Clint, that's what Georgia needs. We've got plenty of guys that are pretty good, but Georgia needs dominant, game-wrecking players to show up in the biggest moments, because Georgia's season is not finished with its big moments, right? Like there's an Ole Miss game coming up. There's a Tennessee game coming to Athens. And after that win today, Tennessee ain't got nobody left on that schedule, y'all. Like,
that's their Super Bowl.
There's a good chance that Tennessee is going to have one loss still when they come to Athens in November. And you want to talk about an environment, DKR. If Texas fans want to see an environment, come on down. Come on south. Come on east, I guess, a little bit, over to Athens town, and we will we'd be happy to show you around. Have a good time. Matthew McConaughey can drive you over in his Lincoln.
No,
I believe he practices law out of that thing, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he practices law.
He's practicing something tonight. Jalen Walker tonight, 8 solo tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, fumble recovery. He was everywhere, making nightmare situations.
He was everywhere. Texas rushed the ball for 29 yards, Clint, tonight. They had 29 yards rushing. You want to talk about an offensive line absolutely getting whipped. It wasn't just the pass rush. Can we talk about Warren Brinson? Can we talk about Nas Stackhouse in the middle there?
Ingram Dawkins?
Can we talk about Ty Ingram Dawkins and the way that those guys absolutely locked down the middle of that defensive front? Texas came out early and they dinked and dunked a little bit on that opening possession, right? You remember that way back in the first quarter? They dinked, they dunked.
They couldn't hit anything over the top because coverage was on lockdown the entire night.
But Georgia would not allow any rushing yards in this game, which really hamstrung Sark and everything that he wanted to do. We had the Locked On Longhorns on this show this week, and he said, make no bones about it, in every offense that Steve Sarkisian has ever called, he always wants to establish the run first and work everything else off of that. Well, guess what? Go? Well, when you rush for 3 yards a carry, 29 total yards, that ain't it. But
we must have brought a whole bunch of people we must have loaded the box up, and we must have brought like 7 guys down into it and blitzed people all night long, Daniel.
No, we get home with 4, Clint. Ooh. I mean, there were times when we brought more than 4, and you better believe it worked. But we got home with 3. We got home with 4.
With 3 at times.
We laid Jalen off as a spy. Do you remember?
And then we said,
and Arch said, I'm going to take off towards the sideline.
Let's go.
And that man, I don't know if you know this, but he's been clocked at 20 plus miles per hour in the GPS in his head. That's Peyton Manning's nephew, but he's got more speed than Peyton Manning ever had. I don't know if you know that. Jalen Walker said, sit down, son. The kids' table's over here. Texas can go sit at that. We're Georgia. Mm-hmm. We own the SEC. Welcome. This is our conference, and they just proved it again and again and again tonight.
15 points off 3 interceptions by Carson Beck. Yeah. Penalties galore that were atrociously criminal. We're
going to get to the refs in the third segment. We'll get to the refs in the third. Yeah.
But 50 against Steve Sarkisian and the best offensive line and the best quarterback and the best unit of a team in Austin had 15 guys. This is I know we've seen defenses performances from Kirby Smart team before. I know they're classic. This for me is top 3 defensive performance under Kirby Smart because of where it comes in this season.
Absolutely.
Because in the trajectory of this season, the narrative was Georgia's lost a step. This defense isn't elite. We're missing dudes. Remember all of us, Kirby's criticizing the fans. Put a better product on the field and maybe I'll cheer louder. Well,
Lord. How about now? Will you cheer louder now?
Will you cheer now? Because he just put a whooping on the best offensive team in college football in their place to 15 points after being handed 3 turnovers and 2 calls that have never been called in the history of college football before in the entirety of his existence.
Yeah, I mean,
top 3.
You name a defensive statistic, okay? And I'm not exaggerating. They can be advanced statistics like yards per play, like points per drive,
expected
like offensive
per play even, sure.
Offensive efficiency, opponent adjusted stuff like that. You can do those things. Or you can do just like basic statistics like total defense or
total yards,
passing yards allowed. Mm-hmm. Texas is literally coming into this game number 1 or number 2 in absolutely every category. Move to the offensive side of the ball.
Sure.
Every statistical category you can think of. Texas is literally number 1 or number 2 in almost every category. And Georgia scores 30 points while stalling out. What did we punt the ball 4 times.
Thorson, by the way, a menace.
We punted 4 times. We had 3 turnovers.
Yeah.
Georgia still scores 30 points in this game. And they hold Texas to 15 points.
Again, I know we've seen more complete games, more dominant. This is one of the top, not just one of the top 3 games under Kirby Smart in his tenure here, in his 100 games that he's won.
We're going to have a whole week to talk about the warts of this team, to talk about things that we think are problems moving forward, to talk about, like, there are those things. I just need you to hear me, Georgia fan. We just went into the home stadium of the number 1 team in the country, not just in ranking, but in any measurable unit. The number 1 team in the country. We go in and we dominate them. Like, there was never a point in this game when Texas was going to win the game. Never one. And that includes what we're going to talk about in the third segment, when the refs absolutely, literally tried to steal the game from Kirby Smart and this Georgia team, which we will talk about at length next.
But first, FanDuel. FanDuel.com is the place that Daniel and I went to sprinkle on the money line of this game to get an extra little. What was the line, Daniel, that you told the people last week to take on the Georgia side, that you can get alternative lines over at FanDuel? How many points did you?
You can. And I went ahead and laid 13.5 with Georgia on FanDuel. And let me just update you. FanDuel just goes ahead and pays you instantly. And so that money is, it's currently in the account here, and the account's looking pretty good. It's right here in the settled bets, 13.5. That was plus 600 is what that was.
Okay, y'all. So that's pretty good. You can get all of those lines over at FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On Bulldogs and Locked On Podcasts everywhere. Daniel and I go there exclusively to make all of our bets. We love it over there. And the bet we did where we said, sure, take the points if they want to give you to it, but put it on the money line and do an alternative line where Georgia's having to give points over to Texas. We said take all of them because we weren't losing this game. FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On Bulldogs. Go over there right now. Place a $5 bet. You get $200 bet bonus right into your account. Bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets right to your account. FanDuel.com. Make every moment more. All right, Daniel, let's talk about the most egregious play. Literally, I've coached high school football. I've coached college football. I've coached elementary football. I've coached flag football for junior hires. At every single level, I have never in my life experienced a call where a flag was thrown, a call was announced, and the ball was marked off. Those are the crucial elements, because once you mark off a ball, it's done. You can convene, you can come together, you can talk about it before, you can pick up the flag after that's fine. That happens quite regularly. Literally never have seen a ball marked off, ready for play. Then Texas and all of you giant, ridiculous, idiot people that live there.
Every one of you, by the way.
just get that out there. Put a meme out of it. Make sure to quote us. Through trash like gremlins, like troll people.
Should have grabbed the person next to you if you were trying to throw trash on the field, but whatever.
And you threw a hissy fit like Karen's asking for a manager.
That's correct. You're from Texas after all.
And scared referees into overturning a call that they legally, I'm not exaggerating, are barred from doing.
Yeah, you're not allowed as an official to watch the video board and then decide on a non-reviewable, because that's called a video review. You understand what I'm trying to say?
I do.
On a non-reviewable call, like, I don't know, pass interference, you're not allowed to watch the video board and then overturn a call. Make no mistake. While Texas's fans were destroying their already not very attractive stadium, the referees were just watching the video board and decided they made the wrong call, which, Clint, they did. They made the wrong call. It was a ridiculously bad call. It was not in any way pass interference. What it was a terrible throw and an interception. But that's not what they called. And then after watching the video board for 10 minutes while Steve Sarkisian went and literally begged his own fans to stop throwing refuse on the field because Texas, and I lean in here, that's your football program. I just described your so-called number one SEC-worthy football program is Steve Sarkisian literally begging you to stop throwing trash on your own field.
Yep.
After that, the refs changed the call. Like, Kirby, you don't ever hear this from Kirby Smart.
No.
After the game, Kirby literally says the refs tried to steal the game from us. He's not saying they made bad calls. See, there's a huge difference. He's not talking about the targetings, by the way. I know a lot of you think some of those targeting calls were bogus. And I get that. Whatever. Kirby's not saying the refs missed calls.
No.
He's saying they did something that is patently against the rules of college football. They literally changed the rules of college football to the point that poor Matt Austin had to be like, I don't know what's going on. I've never seen that before. I don't know what you want me to say. They're not allowed to do that.
That ESPN pays on retainer to come in and give them the only insight that only he can give because he's the only one qualified to do so, looks at this and says, I have no idea.
That's not a thing. I don't know what's happening right now because that's not a thing that happens. Somebody might get fired.
They should.
Over this. I'm just saying, this is a thing where it's not like you missed a call.
Nope.
People miss calls.
They missed the call on the first
They
flag.
missed that call. That
was a bad call.
Yeah. You shouldn't get fired for that, right?
No.
If you miss a billion calls over and over again, you should probably not continue working those big games, but you shouldn't get fired for missing a call.
No.
But when you deliberately change the rules in order to appease a fan base,
there it is.
It really starts to reek of you're trying to keep this game close, which is probably not a great look if you're the SEC.
No.
But again, regardless, Georgia still doubled their score and won the game going away. There was no point in the game where Texas had points and was within one score of Georgia at the same time.
See, that's what's interesting. Everything against, and this is why people want to say, "Oh, Kirby's got them guys believing everybody thinks they're going to 7-5," and nobody. First of all, you literally picked to every single one of you said Texas is going to whoop because they're the most elite, complete team in college football. So stop. You can't criticize him because he's just using your words. Secondly, when things like this happen, it's real easy for everybody to go, maybe Kirby's onto something here. Maybe they wanted Texas to go ahead and have a good showing. Texas got a lot of people, population, viewership. I mean, we're not
Matthew
conspiracy
McConaughey's there after all.
What we're saying is it plays a factor whether you like it or not. We are human beings that are emotional. Yeah. And what Kirby is saying is you should check yourself. And everybody thinking we're going to say, y'all done screwed up. This is just
that's the thing.
This is just like the championship run in which every single person, in which everybody comes out and says, hey, y'all picked everybody else to beat us. You all picked us to go 7-5. That's the you fed the mentality. You gave it fuel. If you just let it go away, but I'm glad you did because you woke them up. And Kirby takes things personally. Like him or not. You might not like him, opposing fan base.
I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you don't, Tennessee fan.
Tennessee fan.
I bet you're here already, aren't you? You're feeling good after today, aren't you, Tennessee fan? You got that cigar? You still trying to light it? If you got it, it's hard. No, it's hard. You got to kind of turn it as you go,
and you turn it around. You cut the side that goes in your. You got to flip it around first, okay?
Well, they don't. To be fair, 16 of the last 17 years, they haven't had to worry about it. So it's not like they're not used to it. It's hard.
Not like a coffee table book. It doesn't have legs that fold out. You got to put the cut side.
It comes up.
Look, y'all screwed up.
Kirby, the disrespect comes from outside, Clint. But what I love about Kirby is that, he's asked about this defensive performance after the game. And what does he say? He said they were embarrassed by the way that they played last week. You understand? Like, that's not criticism. They don't care what Locked On Bulldogs thinks about the way they played last week. They don't care what you, the Twitter warrior, says about the way that they played last week. But they do care about their own performance, and they were embarrassed by the way that they played last week. I think there's some internal motivation to this team as well, Clint. I think they feel the disrespect, but I also think they just look around and go, hey, we're Georgia. Like, this is not the standard. And then all of a sudden you come out tonight and, there were times when it did not look like the standard.
Sure. Okay.
But defensively,
oh my word.
And when the game was on the line, and we haven't even talked about that offensive line and the way that they played today.
Horseshoe.
Okay. Horseshoe and running lanes for days, Clint. The reason y'all are all popping off about how much you hate Mike Bobo is because that offensive line was absolutely out there wrecking people, creating lanes for Trevor Etienne to have, I thought, his most impactful game as a Georgia Bulldog. Arian Smith, I thought, had a great game. As a wide receiver, as a blocker. Oscar Delp, are you kidding me? The game that he had both as a receiver but also as a blocker, I thought he played exceptionally well. There were a lot of guys, even on the offensive side of the ball, that we could talk about that played great. We'll talk about them more as the week goes on. We won't talk much more about Texas moving forward from here. Because the Big 12 is not really relevant. It's a non-conference game that Georgia wins, but now we got to get back into conference play. We play Florida next, and so these are teams that are relevant for us.
Traditional teams, long-standing teams that we care about.
Listen, they have Matthew McConaughey as like their unofficial spokesperson, and mascot. we have Quavo as our unofficial spokesperson.
Yeah, we do.
There's a reason that Georgia out recruits Texas every year, Clint. It's because people my age know who Matthew McConaughey is, but people who are getting recruited to play college football, Clint, are not my age.
No,
they do not give two rips about.
When you
Matthew
said he practices law out of the car, they had no idea what you're talking about.
They did not catch that reference, which is a shame because it was a brilliant reference that I made.
It was.
Listen, Georgia is him, and Texas just played the biggest game in the history of their 100-year stadium and got embarrassed.
Call Kirby Smart Bob Marley because he just shot the sheriff. Okay,
it's over.
It's over, y'all.
That's a shame.
He's Daniel. I'm Clint. Locked On Bulldogs. We'll be back Monday talking about this upon further review, giving you some tidbits. Maybe come back for the pessimistic side, but just enjoy the night because we won. We're the best team in college football. We'll see y'all then.
See ya.